Doesn't mean that Hillary would have been a good choice either. She was a terrible choice. She's a corrupt politician, one of the most unlikable people that's ever run for office. They were trying to get people to be supporting her just because she's a woman. This is going to be her history. Women, ladies, I stand with her. So there's all these women that have this blind allegiance towards this career politician, completely full of shit. She's been full of shit forever.
Rogan tears straight through that armor, mocking the myth of Hillary as the indestructible titan of politics. He points out that behind the Iron Lady branding is a career propped up by spin, survival tactics, and a knack for shifting blame. The battle-tested veteran act looks less like resilience and more like someone clinging to power through sheer stubbornness. Every speech polished to perfection, every photo framed for legacy, every excuse rehearsed for sympathy. Rogan strips it all down to reveal a politician defined not by strength, but by endless damage control. What's left isn't a powerhouse. It's a survivor of her own missteps, still trying to convince the crowd the armor was never dented.
The conversation between James Comey.
110 emails in 52 email chains have been determined by the owning agency to contain classified information.
When James Comey testified about what he did and what they found with the Hillary Clinton emails, and then her version of it.
I did not email any classified material to anyone. There is no classified material.
She's just a straight liar. She deleted 33.
Rogan shreds the inevitable leader narrative Hillary's been selling for years, calling out how her brand of brilliance always seems to vanish when the spotlight turns harsh. She frames herself as the most prepared, the most deserving, the one who's been through the fire. But Rogan flips that script, pointing out that the fire often started in her own backyard. The scandals, the secrecy, the convenient lapses of memory, none of it squares with the genius-level persona she insists on projecting. To Rogan, it's not brilliance, it's survival wrapped in spin. The power suits and stern lectures may sell gravitas, but what they really mask is a politician whose greatest talent is dodging accountability, while convincing people she's the victim of everyone else's mistakes.
Just a puppet of banks, and those people make piles of money from speeches, and there's major problems with the Clinton Foundation. It's not even around anymore. It's a dark legion. And meanwhile, she's doing all this Me Too talk. Her husband's a goddamn predator.
Yeah.
He's been a predator forever.
Yeah.
She said that Monica Lewinsky was a grown woman and it wasn't an abuse of power. Get the fuck out of here.
How old is Monica?
She was 20. He was the president.
Yeah, 20 is... You're a kid.
He was the president. There's no more powerful person on earth. If that's not an abuse of power, what is an abuse of power? You're banging someone who works for you and you run the world?
Rogan drags that relatable Hillary routine through the mud, comparing it to a bad SNL sketch that just won't end. He points out how every diner stop and every staged handshake feels like a scene from a political training video. One where the actors forgot how real people actually act. The smiles too polished, the jokes too rehearsed, the just folks image so overproduced it borders on parody. Instead of connection, what comes across is calculation. A politician who thinks authenticity can be manufactured if the lighting and timing are just right. Rogan laughs hardest at the irony. The harder Hillary tries to look human, the more robotic she seems.
Sides, though. I see the side that if you're an anti-Trump person and you find out that he's doing something that's against the law, you'd want to prosecute it for it. I don't know the specifics of the Hillary Clinton email thing in terms of like what those files were, but if they're the same classification of files as like he had, you could make the argument they were more vulnerable because they were on a regular laptop.
Well, and it's still destroyed after a subpoena. After a subpoena. Imagine if Trump was subpoenaed for this information, instead of handing it over, he burned it.
That is where shit gets really squirrely.
Rogan doesn't just catalog the scandals. He shreds the pattern behind them. He argues that Hillary's legacy isn't built on leadership but on survival, slipping through firestorms with lawyerly deflections and a smile sharp enough to cut glass. The email server becomes less a tech blunder and more a symbol of how she operates. Rules are for other people, loopholes are for her. Benghazi, in Rogan's breakdown, isn't just a tragedy. It's the perfect example of Clinton's reflex to protect the brand first and the truth second. He frames it like a political survivalist course. Dodge accountability, stall for time, and outlast the outrage until the headlines move on. For Rogan, it all adds up to a portrait of someone who doesn't govern, she maneuvers.
He's asked about it. Was that some sort of abuse of power? She's like, no, Monica Lewinsky was an adult.
A president of the United States cannot have a consensual relationship with an intern. The power imbalance is too great.
Who was an adult. But let me ask you this. Where's the investigation of the current incumbent, against whom numerous allegations have been made, and which he dismisses, denies, and ridicules?
It's also like fucking president.
So
man.
the only time there's an abuse of power is when children are involved?
Yeah.
Like, what the are you talking about?
That is crazy.
Rogan rips into that defeat as proof that the Clinton machine, for all its money and manpower, never figured out how to connect with people on a human level. He frames it as the ultimate irony. A candidate who branded herself as the most qualified in history, yet couldn't inspire enough trust to beat a reality TV star. The campaign becomes, in Rogan's words, less a political effort and more a bloated tech startup. Flush with cash, packed with consultants, but completely blind to the market it was trying to reach. He calls it a failure of instinct, a reminder that no amount of data can cover up the fact that voters can smell inauthenticity from a mile away.
I provided all my emails that could possibly be work-related.
Several thousand work-related emails that were not among the group of 30,000 emails returned by Secretary Clinton.
When they rigged the DNC, they rigged the primaries so that Bernie Sanders was going to lose.
I thought using one device would be simpler.
She also used numerous mobile devices to send and to read email.
She had her people into the DNC way in advance. That Donna Brazile book about it is mine.
Rogan frames that as the ultimate twist of the Hillary Clinton saga. The idea that her greatest opponent wasn't Trump, Congress, or even the endless media scrutiny, but herself. He hammers the point that her entire career has been about projecting inevitability, yet time and again she stumbled over her own contradictions. The foundation, the speeches to Wall Street, the constant recalibration of her stances. Rogan calls it death by 1,000 self-inflicted cuts. He compares her political journey to a blockbuster movie with all the special effects, a huge budget, and an A-list star, but no script people actually want to sit through. The legacy she wanted was unshakable dominance. The one she's left with, Rogan argues, is a cautionary tale about what happens when ambition outpaces authenticity.
Part was she was on NPR, and Terry Gross says, you used to be against gay marriage, your husband passed DOMA, which made it a federal law that gay marriage won't be recognized by the federal government, and you changed your position. Like, how did that happen? Was it because Americans became, and Hillary's like, well, America changed their point of view. She goes, no, I understand Americans changed their point of view. What was your mental process? And she goes, no, Terry, you're saying that I changed my mind for political purposes. She starts yelling at her.
You changed your mind. I have to say, I think you are being very persistent, but you are playing with my words.
Rogan keeps the pressure on by pointing out that Hillary's mistakes were never just accidents. They were patterns. The email server wasn't a one-off blunder. It was part of a career defined by secrecy dressed up as competence. He jokes that only Hillary could make yoga sound like classified intel, and only she could look surprised when the cover story collapsed. Then he shifts to Libya, roasting her infamous "we came, we saw." He died moment as proof she treated foreign policy like a late-night punchline. To Rogan, the intervention wasn't strategy, it was spectacle. A political gamble that spiraled into chaos while Hillary kept smiling for the cameras. It's that disconnect, he argues, between the reality on the ground and the narrative she sells that makes her more of a PR campaign than a leader.
Are the people that are like maybe disrespectful to the servers and you find out about it, they sent food back.
The Democrat wall of support for Hillary Clinton's use of a private, unsecure server for official government emails and attachments. Yeah, I remember all of that.
It's not the main guy, it's the support staff.
Her party rallied to her defense. And to this day, it maintains she did nothing wrong. Of course.
The main people are not the president.
As if that woman has a scintilla of credibility on any issue related to national security.
The main people are the people that are running Raytheon, the people that are running these gigantic companies.
Rogan zeroes in on that infamous "we came, we saw." He died moment like it's late-night comedy gold. He says it wasn't foreign policy, it was Hillary stepping into full Bond villain mode, laughing at chaos like it was part of the script. Then he pivots straight into Benghazi, painting her as the seasoned operator who suddenly didn't know whenever accountability knocked at the door. Rogan rips into the absurdity of a top official passing blame around like a hot potato while Americans were under attack. Her cold response is making her look less like a steady leader and more like the captain of the Titanic telling passengers the iceberg was just a minor bump. But Rogan doesn't let her slide into just scandal territory. He feasts on her public awkwardness, from the cringeworthy Southern accent she would conveniently roll out, to rallies so stiff they felt like corporate seminars where the big payoff was stale muffins. He calls her campaign-style robotic, a political machine trying to fake soul, and always glitching at the worst possible moment.
Infuriated when people that I knew that I was friends with were trying to tell me that Hillary Clinton was a good choice. And that's the same choice. I'm like, look, I don't know if she's murdered people, but I know that I worry that she's murdered people. That's I really wonder. Like this Seth Rich shit.
I know. First of all, just leave. You don't even need to go there. You know,
there's so many other things.
There's so many other things.
Rogan tears into her double-sided politics like it's a stand-up bit that writes itself. He paints Hillary as the politician who wants to be both the chess master and the pieces, moving black and white at the same time, then demanding applause no matter who wins. On trade, on war, on social issues, he mocks how she can be for, against, and then for something again, all depending on the polling cycle. To him, her platform is basically a choose-your-own-adventure book where every storyline ends with "Vote Hillary." Then he sharpens the blade on her Wall Street ties. Those six-figure speeches to big banks? Rogan cracks that no billionaire is shelling out that kind of cash to hear tips about home gardening or yoga stretches. It's the political wink in its purest form. Tell the public one story, whisper a different one to the donors, and pray the two crowds never compare notes. And when he points out how the Clinton Foundation's donations dropped like a bad stock chart after her election loss, he hammers the punchline: it was never about charity, it was about access. The lights came on, the music stopped, and suddenly the room full of power players had somewhere else to be.
Of the election, I think they had some crazy odds of Hillary winning. It was like in the 90%. We watched it from the Comedy Store. We did a podcast from the Comedy Store called the End of the World podcast. What was most fascinating was the podcast was over and then we all went to the bar, and on the television, Jake Tapper was just seriously bummed out, talking about Trump winning all these different states.
And Anderson, it is hard to think of a political comeback that is actually more significant than this one. I'm tempted to say Richard Nixon, but that really falls short.
Rogan chews on Hillary's youth outreach like it's the worst open mic set ever attempted. That infamous Pokemon go to the polls line? He frames it as the exact moment a generation collectively rolled its eyes and decided Netflix documentaries about serial killers were a better use of their time. To Rogan, it was proof that cool can't be manufactured, especially not by someone trying to drop pop culture references while rocking a pantsuit that costs more than a year of college tuition. But the roast cuts deeper when he pivots to her brand of feminism. Hillary sells herself as the glass ceiling breaker, yet Rogan jabs at the idea that her rise looked less like a revolution and more like political inheritance, power by proximity rather than pure insurgency. Every "I'm here for women" soundbite, he argues, is undercut by decades of political maneuvering that benefited her career first, her causes second. And then there's her vanishing act. Rogan points out how she floods the airwaves when the vibe is favorable. Book tours, docuseries, glossy interviews, but ghosts whenever the heat turns up. It's the political version of a celebrity who insists they're just a private citizen, right up until the next product launch. To him, Hillary isn't just a politician. She's a franchise that knows how to reboot, rebrand, and re-emerge, but never quite escape the flaws baked into the original design.
Fact.
The Clinton Foundation, for instance.
So, the Iraq War. I'm old enough, Joe, to remember when being for the Iraq War was a disqualifier in a Democratic primary. That's where I'm from. That's why she lost to Barack Obama the first goddamn time she ran.
Right.
And all of a sudden, we're supposed to, now people, like Joy Behar says, that was a long time ago. Forget about it. Why don't you go tell that to a soldier's, to a mother who's got a dead soldier? Why don't you go tell them that?
Rogan saves some of his sharpest jabs for Hillary's obsession with clinging to the spotlight. 2 failed presidential runs? Doesn't matter. She keeps surfacing in documentaries, interviews, and carefully crafted social posts, as if the right caption might finally spark a national "please run again" movement. Rogan compares it to a washed-up band that refuses to retire, promising this tour will be the big comeback, even though the last few barely filled half the seats. But the roast lands heavier than just on her. Rogan uses Hillary as the perfect symbol of a political era that refuses to die. An era where power wasn't about service or authenticity, but about connections, image control, and survival through spin. She's less the bold trailblazer she wants people to see and more the living exhibit of Washington's endless game of optics over honesty. To Rogan, Hillary isn't just a politician past her prime. She's a reminder that the system itself runs on recycling the same names, faces, and formulas, long after the public has stopped buying tickets.
Hillary Clinton in like 2008 saying some wild type
If they've committed them, no questions asked, they're gone.
She's a Republican.
If they've been working and are law-abiding, we should say, here are the conditions for you staying. You have to pay a stiff fine because you came here illegally. You have to pay back taxes. And you have to try to learn English.
More than Trump.
And then
it's
you couldn't believe
illusion.
Rogan frames her not as the tragic hero of American politics, but as the blueprint of how a career can survive scandal after scandal, while still never winning the one thing that truly matters: authentic trust. In his roast, Hillary doesn't just lose elections, she loses the narrative she's spent a lifetime trying to script. All that's left is the image of a politician who mistook endurance for inspiration, influence for connection, and inevitability for destiny. To Rogan, Hillary Clinton isn't just another fallen giant. She's the warning sign flashing at the end of the political highway. Stay too long, play too many sides, and eventually the audience stops buying the act.